Well, boys and girls, children of all ages, ladies and gentlemen, Star Wars is saved, boys and girls, because according to the latest report, according to the latest interview from Star Wars Theory with a very interesting individual who has a lot of very interesting connections to Lucasfilm and the Walt Disney Company, as well, is saying that our dear, sweet, beloved George Lucas is coming back, ladies and gentlemen, is going to be involved in a new live action series. Now, I say Star Wars is saved, and I mean that very, very sarcastically, ladies and gentlemen, because although we all do love George Lucas, we do love his vision, we love what he gave us, I am a guy that does really enjoy the prequel series as well. It was something that came out. It was my first experience of Star Wars in the theater, so will always hold a special place in my heart. Are there a few issues with those movies? Of course, but at the end of the day, they are George Lucas's vision, and we absolutely love them, and they are certainly far superior to anything that Disney Star Wars has put out for us since essentially, literally, they have bought it. I mean, I would even say, though, I did enjoy Mando Season 1 and Season 2, pretty much everything else that they put out has been an absolute abomination, and the ratings and the fans completely and totally agree with that. That's why you see constantly that Star Wars is a dead franchise being touted out there and being talked about once again. So apparently Walt Disney Company is absolutely desperate. This smells and screams of desperation. Obviously, Kathleen Kennedy and Dave Filoni have failed them miserably, and I know there's some Filoni fans out there, and I understand that, but I never was a fan of Clone Wars. I really think Filoni is way too high on his own supply, and now they have to call in what they believe to be the big guns. And as we're all very well aware, with the proxy battle that just happened not too long ago with the Walt Disney Company and Peltz and all of the rest of that kind of stuff, George Lucas did come out and openly say that he was backing Iger and the current establishment regime at the Walt Disney Company. Now, whether or not this has to do with something with the contracts or whether or not this has something to do with it, maybe George actually does believe it. But if that's the case, he clearly hasn't watched anything Disney Star Wars has been producing over the last few years. Or who knows? Maybe he's under duress. I have no idea. Or maybe he's just completely and totally fallen off the end because he's getting to be an old man. Maybe he just doesn't care anymore. But if that be the case, then why would the Walt Disney Company, why would he even agree to come back? Maybe he is trying to fix things. Maybe he is trying to make things better. I have no idea, but I'll tell you this much right now. I certainly do not trust anybody over at Disney, Lucasfilm, Disney, Star Wars, or Walt Disney Company as a whole to try to fix any of this kind of stuff, even trying to bring George Lucas back. This sounds like nothing more than, to me, that's something to try to bait the fans into coming back, considering the fact that they know their numbers are absolutely in the toilet for every Star Wars product that they have produced over the last few years for Disney+. So let's check this out. From That Park Place over here, shout out to John Trent and putting this together for us and putting all the nice, juicy details all together. So if you haven't already, make sure you hit that like button, share it with all your friends, subscribe if you have not already, or follow depending on what platform you are on, and let me know what you think about George coming back in the comments section down below. All right, ladies and gentlemen, let's get into this. George Lucas reportedly returning to Star Wars for a new live-action series. Dun, dun, dun. Former Star Wars assistant director and second unit director Roger Christian claims that George Lucas is returning to Star Wars and will be involved in a new live-action series. Now, we do know one of the reasons behind George Lucas wanting to sell off Star Wars was because of his age at the time. He had one more trilogy in him, but after talking to his wife and the fact that he's got a new kid and stuff like that, he was just like, because flat out, trilogies take 10 years of your life. At least it did for George Lucas, and it's one of them situations where his wife just honestly didn't think his health could handle doing something like that again. So whether or not that ended up being the truth, that's what we heard around. But at least, like, it sounds like if he's coming back for a television series, that would be a little bit easier on him and obviously wouldn't require a dedication of 10 years of his life. So do I think this is out of the realm of possibilities? No. Do I think Disney is this desperate? Absolutely. Like money printer go, brrr. George, please, 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 we need you. Even if he's only there in name only, Disney is still going to end up paying him big to do this kind of stuff, unless there's something worked into their contract for him to come back, but I highly doubt that. If he's coming back to do any work, he's getting paid. So Christian, who won an Academy Award for the original Star Wars film for Best Production Design, revealed in a recent interview with YouTuber Star Wars Theory that George Lucas is returning to Lucasfilm to work on a new live-action series. I mean, this is a guy that probably would still be on pretty good terms with George Lucas, would probably still be able to talk to him and know what's going on. Not saying it's true. Obviously, this is just rumor mill right now because nothing has officially been announced. But would it surprise you in Disney's currently desperation situation? No. Christian stated, I think he's coming back. I'm pretty sure now that he's doing a series. I think that they're now bringing him into the fold from what I hear because there's a Star Wars live action series coming. And I've got a strong suspicion that George will have something to do with it. That's what I'm thinking, and I might be prophesizing. So he thinks he's coming back. This is his speculation. I don't know if he actually means he's actually heard anything specifically, or maybe he's heard rumors, maybe he's talked to George, maybe there's been something going on in the background. Because it's one of them situations where anybody that's been around any person for any length of time has watched somebody for long enough, you can kind of tell when they start dropping hints of things, right? If you pay attention to somebody long enough, you can kind of get an idea of what they're kind of hinting at around. Maybe that's the case here. Maybe this guy's coming completely out of left field. I have no idea, but this is the rumor mill that we have to report on. So that's what I heard and read, he continued. And I don't know from anything apart from I'm prophesizing that might happen, because you've seen he's been very physically present there, and he's been down on the sets and everything, which that is very curious too. He did also come out and back Bob Iger in the proxy vote as well. Christian's comment in the wake of George Lucas supporting the Walt Disney Company amid its proxy battle against Nelson Peltz. We just talked about that. Not for amateurs, yada, yada, yada. Goes back over George Lucas's statement, all of that kind of stuff. The statement was bizarre given Lucas's public statements that were critical of the Walt Disney Company and its handling of the Star Wars after he sold the company for over $4 billion back in 2012. For an example, in an interview with Charlie Rose ahead of the release of The Force Awakens, Lucas described the Walt Disney Company's leadership, including Bob Iger, as white slavers. He said, "These are my kids. All the Star Wars films, I love them. I created them. I've been very intimately involved in them. I sold them to white slavers, and that take these things and do disasters with them." So it's one of them situations. We've also seen interviews where he's like, well, this wasn't really the idea that I had for things. They've obviously went in a different direction, that kind of things. So obviously it's kind of weird. So I don't know if it's money printer go burr, or if maybe this is just all complete and total nonsense. Maybe this guy is just talking out of his behind. I have no idea. But it would be very interesting to see if this actually ends up coming to fruition. If Disney is so desperate they literally have to call in the founding guy for all of Star Wars to try to come in them, at least either give them some kind of clout or actually maybe try to write something and do something for them good. I have no idea. But would it surprise anybody if this is true? No, not at all, because we know Disney is desperate. Now, the real question is whether or not having George come back, how much egg that is going to put on Kathleen Kennedy's face and whether or not she's willing to stand for it, or whether or not Bob Iger even cares anymore is the real question. So we'll see what happens. It's only a matter of time before we find out if this is true or not. But here we go, boys and girls. This is the news and the rumor for the day, because apparently George Lucas is coming back to save Star Wars. Well, hey, guess what, George? We love you. But even with all the imaginative and creative talent you've got, brother, I don't think there's any way even you can pull off a miracle in the Force with something like that. Star Wars is dead, and the Walt Disney Company has killed it.